Do you remember being a teenager and having that one music group you absolutely loved? For me, it was The Party. My love for them started with the all-new Mickey Mouse Club on the Disney Channel in the late 80s and early 90s. I was hooked on the show, and when The Party was formed from its cast, I became an instant fan. One of the group's members was a fun-loving, redheaded kid named Chase, someone I admired from the start. Today, I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with none other than Chase or Chase Hampton. It was a dream come true to chat with one of my teen idols and dive into his journey, from those early days on the Mickey Mouse Club to where he is now. I still can't believe I got to have this conversation, and I can't wait to share it with you. So sit back and get ready to relive some nostalgia and hear the amazing story of Chase Hampton.
Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Jake Bushman, and I'm the host of Journey with Jake. What an absolute honor it was for me to sit down and talk with Chase Hampton. As a kid, I always dreamed of meeting my idols, the famous people I looked up to, but you never really know what that experience will be like. Well, fast forward 35 plus years, and I finally got the chance to chat with Chase. Let me tell you, he is as genuine, kind, and down to earth as they come. This conversation was truly special to me on a personal level, and I know you're going to love hearing about Chase's journey and everything he's been up to. Before we dive in, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And if you're enjoying Journey with Jake, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps spread the word. Journey with Jake is proud to be part of the Podmatch Podcast Network. If you're looking for more great podcasts, check out podmatch.com/network. Want to watch the conversation instead of just listening? Journey with Jake is on YouTube. Head over to Journey with Jake Podcast on YouTube, hit subscribe, and don't forget to like the video. And if you'd like to connect with me, the best way is through Instagram. Find me at Journey with Jake Podcast and say hi. Now let's get to it. I honestly don't even know where to begin with today's episode. I grew up watching Chase on the Disney Channel and listening to him sing on my Discman. To say I was a fan is an understatement. So getting the chance to sit down and talk with Chase Hampton was truly a dream come true. Let's jump into my conversation with Chase Hampton.
Well, I am thrilled today because sitting in front of me here is Chase Hampton. Do you go by Chasen or Chase?
However you want to go, brother. Either one's fine. I answer both.
So Chase Hampton, I knew him as Chase from the all-new Mickey Mouse Club back in the day. I grew up watching Chase. I grew up watching him. He's part of a group called The Party, which I was a huge fan of. In fact, that's the only music group that I've ever been part of the official fan club, and I was part of it.
Yeah. Party Patrol.
Exactly, part of Patrol. So that was me. So it's just cool for me to have you here in front of me talking to you. It's awesome. Journey with Jake, it's an adventure podcast, but it's your journey and kind of who you are. So I kind of want to dive into who Chase is a little bit. And I'm not going to just say, hey, tell me about Chase, because there's a lot to Chase. What I want to know first, though, Chase, before we get into, because I do got to talk about Mickey Mouse Club and we got to talk about The Party a little bit.
Sure.
I don't know you before that, though. I don't know where you were born, where you grew up, and kind of how you got into the Mickey Mouse Club. So can you kind of take us to the childhood a little bit of Chase?
Absolutely, man. Well, all these experiences along the way ended up kind of making me who I am. So I probably didn't even know who I was back then either. I come from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and my family are like preachers and farmers, and we had a big farm and about 20 cows and the whole bit. And I was in the city, so I wasn't in the rural area, but in the city. And my dad was a big sports guy, and he probably would have been a professional tennis player had he not had me. But if you go to my dad's house, it's just trophies and, all the stuff from, from college on and in the military, and just, he was a big basketball and baseball guy. And then, of course, he was a huge tennis player. So he really wanted me to be a tennis player. On my birth announcement was like a little baby playing tennis. In his hopes and dreams, I would have been, Serena Williams or something. And along the way, my dad also did a lot of speech tournaments and stuff. That was a big thing in the South. So as I grew up, I started to really I was really into music. And I was shy. I was very introverted, even still. And I told my parents I went to see a big play at the local theater, and I saw kids up there on stage, and I was like, I want to do that. And he was like, well, okay, all right, and I didn't want to show too much disappointment, but at the same time, because my dad was such a competitive guy, he was like, okay, we'll figure this out. And I ended up started, acting school and doing plays, and there was a local competition in Oklahoma called Oklahoma Kids, which Blake Shelton actually came out of as well. But it was a big deal in Oklahoma. Not a lot going on in Oklahoma for performers, but that was a big deal. And I got into Oklahoma Kids, and that's where my dad was like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Because he was such a competitive guy, he used the sports kind of, mentality with me performing. So I would go in and start doing these numbers, and he instantly found a way for me to win by doing patriotic songs. You do patriotic songs, you're going to win this. In fact, one of my big numbers was, this is kind of crazy, but at that time, I'm sure you remember when the Challenger blew up, the space shuttle. And he's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. He's like, you're going to sing Memory from Cats. And most people who would sing Memory from Cats in these competitions would dress up as a cat and the whole bit. And I would come out there in my little red, white, and blue tux, and white tux with the blue and, cummerbund and the red tie and all that. And I would sing in front of this easel, and it was all the people who died in the space shuttle, and sang Memory from Cats. And, the crowd just, yay! And at the very end, he's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. At the very end, you're going to bring out a folded flag and place it at the bottom of the easel. And I'm like, oh, you're crazy, Dad, And then, of course, I did it. And I looked out in the audience, and I saw everybody just, a mess. And in my head, I'm thinking, my dad's a genius. It's like he knew how to make a moment out of this, and in a good way, not disrespectful at all. It was obviously
Sure.
To really show love and attention to it all. But I kept doing it. It kind of became a motif for me. I ended up doing America the Beautiful. That was kind of one of my big numbers. And so I just kept winning these competitions. But the cool thing is, by being at these competitions, there was every kind of person under the sun. There was, people doing karate. There was one guy who had Will Rogers' actual ropes, and he would spin ropes, or professional jump ropers, or jugglers, unicyclists, tap dancing, everything. So by being backstage and being in these competitions, I started just, really inhaling all of this stuff around me, like, okay, how do you do that? And, I became friends with all these people, and learned how to juggle, learned how to ride a 6-foot unicycle. And, they would, this competition would actually put the finalists, they would put them at local theaters, and we'd go perform for, different homes. And there was a local theme park there called Frontier City that I often would sing the national anthem at, or America the Beautiful, before the fireworks would go off. So being around all that, I just kept learning all these things. I began buck dancing, which is kind of clogging to rock music, tap dancing, hip hop, you name it. I just wanted to learn. And I think that was kind of my talent more than anything, was just being able to pick things up quickly and just loving the attention, and having fun, getting out there in front of the crowd and making the crowd go crazy, and figuring out the strategy of what worked and what didn't, like my dad was really into. Of course, well, at that time it was pre-internet, pre-YouTube.
Right.
So, and you might remember this, but back then they would do like these local, like NBC would come through town, or Disney would come through town. And on the local commercials, they go, come to the mall this Saturday and Sunday, be the next NBC. We're looking for the big hit, and they would actually find stars. I remember in Oklahoma at one point, and so that was always in the back of everybody's head, like, no, this actually works. And then, of course, at one point, the Disney came through looking for local stars. And they didn't come to Oklahoma. They came to Dallas.
Okay.
And my dad got a call and said, they're having this thing, down in Dallas. Would you want to go? And my mom took me out of school the next day. We drove down there, and that kind of sets up the next portion of our
Yeah.
probably
Wow.
your questions. But that's kind of how, as a kid, I was just looking to perform, and I think the blessing was being in this Oklahoma Kids, which kind of set me up for success, in my next chapter.
Yeah, for sure. I find it interesting because you said you were introverted, and you said you kind of
I
still
am.
are.
I still am. Yeah. I mean, I've obviously, you learn how to
Yeah.
do the thing, and it's all very genuine for me. But yeah, I mostly shy away from things, even still. So I think performing, and I've heard Beyonce say this, and in some of her interviews, when she goes on stage, she kind of becomes a different person. And I think that's what that was for me.
Okay.
When I go on stage, I would just kind of all of a sudden be like, what? And people would be like, "Wow, who's this kid?" Or
Yeah.
belt out this voice that no one had heard me when I was speaking. They'd be like, "Well, where does that come from?" And I think that kind of wow factor helped kind of win some awards in that portion.
Do you have like the singing talent in your family? Do your parents, family,
Yeah,
sisters, brothers?
uncles
Okay.
was like a vaudeville guy. He sang and but not big. I know like I said, my dad was into doing speech tournaments and into kind of into doing that. But again, in Oklahoma, there was not an outlet for that unless you were just doing musical theater at the local
Yeah.
theater, or local community theater. So that's what I ended up getting into.
So I'm wondering, was there like any kind of disappointment when he initially realized, oh, Chase isn't going to be in sport?
No, because that competition, once he realized he could kind of morph that competition part of
Uh-huh.
him into the Oklahoma Kids, which was a competition. I was bringing home trophies and medals, and it became kind of the same thing for him. Kind of just fun. It was fun to figure out what I was going to do next, or what. And I ended up dancing and winning in dance and winning in some other things and variety and juggling and other things. I just he was I was blessed with two incredibly supportive parents, and I know a lot of people don't get that in life. And I can tell you a little bit about that later when I became a teacher, along the way, and it's extremely a big purpose for me. And a lot of that is the reason why, because I recognize some kids don't have that, and I did, and how important that was for me. If someone would have told me no back then, I probably wouldn't have done it. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you have kids, you tell a kid no one time, and they're like, oh, okay, and they just move on to something else. And I'm sure there's been many legends along the way that we've all missed out on because somewhere along the line, somebody who loved them and thought they might have been saving them, like, that's keep dreaming, buddy, but we're not Hollywood, it's not, it's foreign to them, and people who love us who aren't in that business tend to just go, oh, that's, you're kind of dreaming crazy,
Right.
and the truth is, you just never know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. No, I appreciate you sharing that. That's an interesting way to look at it. And so I appreciate that. And that was good for me to know because I think I probably knew you were from Oklahoma City, but I didn't know the background and how that whole bit was. So I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah.
sure.
So you ended up going to an audition in Dallas with Disney. Disney was there.
So Disney was there, and they were auditioning for this movie called Why Because We Like You, which was about the original Mickey Mouse Club. And this is how crazy life works. I pulled into the hotel in Dallas with my mom, and we were there about 1 a.m. So we walked in, tired from driving, and went to the lobby and checked in, and no one was in the lobby but us, really. And I have my little boom box and my cassette tapes of all my numbers that I could do. And I was wearing my jams. Most of y'all probably don't know what jams are, but we do.
Yeah.
And those really loud shorts, and just kind of, I just had my thing. Um, and at that very moment, this is how crazy life works. You just never know. At the other end of the lobby, I start hearing this commotion, and these people are, kind of stumbling in the door. And I don't know how many drinks they might have had, but they were probably out for dinner and, getting ready for the next day because they were going to have a big day the next day. But 3 or 4 people come in, and, when you're a kid, you have radar hearing. So even though it was like, I don't know, 100 feet away, I could hear them go, I want a piece here for the audition. I want a piece here for the Mickey Mouse Club. And one guy yelled out, "Hey, are you here for tomorrow? Are you here for the Mickey Mouse Club audition?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "Well, where are the casting directors?" And I was like, "Oh, right on." And he's just like, let's go right now." And I started walking their way with my little boombox, and they're like, "No, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow." And I'm like, "Awesome, awesome." And again, I'm an introvert. So because that happened, the next day rolls around and there's over 1,000 people in line. People are there, crack of dawn. So when I get up, there's already a huge line there. By the time I make it into the door, and as soon as you walk in that door with all the casting directors, the lights are hitting you, the stage lights, they have everything set up in there, camera ready. If that would have been my first experience meeting these people, I don't know if I would have been the same. But
Yeah.
because I had seen them the night before, they were like, "Oh, you're the guy." And I'm like, "It's me. I made it. I'm here." And I got to kind of joke with them, and it became not a first meeting. It became kind of like, they were waiting on me. And I kind of riffed off of it. And they were like, "Well, let's see what you can do, pal." And so I gave them my tapes, and we started into the America the Beautiful. And I still have, they go like, "You do anything else?" I'm like, "Yeah, what do you want me to do? I'll tap dance." It's like, "Oh, okay, I'll tap dance for us." And then he goes, "Can you tap dance and read this script at the same time?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And gave it to me. So I was like tapping and reading the script. And he's like, "Oh, man." And he's like, "You're like a triple threat." And I didn't really know what that meant. And I was like, "Well, I ride unicycle too." And he's like, "Oh my God. Oh my God." He's like, "I tell you what, why don't you come around and sit with me and we'll just call in the next person." So I was like, "Okay." And so I went and sat with him with the casting director, and they called in the next people, and I started reading with them. And that went on for a good 45 minutes, to the point where my mom was like, "Where's my son?" Like, he came in this room, never came out. So she actually peeked in. It's like, "Hi, I'm just looking for my son." And he's like, "Oh, he's here with us. He's the casting director now." And I was like, "Oh, hi, Mom." And they were like, "No, we'll let you go. We actually have something for you to do." And they sent me into another room where Entertainment Tonight was set up. They had come down and set all this stuff up, and they were doing a piece on the movie being. So I did this interview with them, and they were like, "They really like you." And I was like, "They do?" "I don't know anything." They're like, "Yeah, yeah." So I'm like, "Okay." And I went home, and I'm like, "Okay, that went great." And
And
that
Chase,
very
just
moment,
how old
yeah,
were you at the time, too? What, just to
I
put
was
perspective?
probably 10, 11 years old.
Okay. Yeah, you're just a
Yeah.
kid still.
And this is 1989, 88, 89,
Okay.
88. And at that moment, the writer's strike happened, a huge writer's strike happened. And everything shut down. All the Tonight Show and Johnny Carson, everything was doing reruns. So everything got shut down and or canceled. And this movie got canceled. So I was like, wow, I got so close. But at the very same moment, Eisner was building MGM Studios, and they wanted a full-time cast on there for not only the Disney Channel, but for the tour that went through at the same time. So, a couple months had gone by when I got word of this, and they sent a message to me saying, "We just need you to come down to Dallas and go to this local, agency, and we need to put you on tape to make sure you hadn't like grown a horn or anything. You're not, because kids all of a sudden go and grow spurts
Sure.
and do weird things. So like, we just want to make sure, we want to check you out one more time." So like, okay, my mom drove me down, and it wasn't any of those fun people that I was with. It was just these odd people. And I was in a room with 4 or 5 other kids. And it's one of those dumb auditions where they just ask you a dumb question. Like, "Okay, Slate, I did my thing. I'm Chase, my agency." And they're like, and they did this to every kid. They go, "Can you describe yourself in 4 words?" And I had people going in front of me, and we're in the same room. So I'm thinking like, "Oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to say?" And I'm listening, and these people go, "I'm friendly, I'm talented, and I'm like, "What am I going to say?" So I get up there, I do my slate, and they're like, "Okay, describe yourself in 4 words." I still didn't know what I was going to say. And I said, "Easy to work with." And the lady just looked at me like I was a ghost, you know what I mean? And I saw her count on her fingers, "Easy to work." "Oh, okay. All right. Thank you." And so I was like, and all the kids are just looking at me like, "You messed up." So I left. I got in the car. My mom's like, "How'd it go?" And I was so upset. I remember all the way home, I was just like, I blew that. And later I got this, telegram, actually, probably just for fun. They sent a telegram to my principal, and they read it over the intercom, saying I had booked the show. And so later on, when I got to the show, these guys told me, when you did that, easy to work with, we were like, so,
That
and
was
I was
it.
like, oh,
Wow.
amazing. All right. And so I still take that with me, when I teach. I'm like, go be you, be different. Don't try to be like everybody else. You just never know what's going to stick with people. You just got to go for it. So
Well, plus
that was
you
one of
had
those
those,
things that kind of sold the deal.
yeah, you had those other kids who kind of did their thing. You were totally different. You kind of, the
It stood
reaction
out.
wasn't what you expected. Yeah, you stood out.
Right.
Wow.
Yep.
So that got you onto the show, essentially.
Onto the show. So I was one of the first, the 12 that got cast for that, and was there from season 1 to 4, and then of course, the show took off and I knew it took off because it was a subscription-based show at that point. They were watching the subscriptions just pour in, and they would,
Wow.
so that's kind of how they knew it was a success. And it was a success in the park as well, because people would come to the park and sit in the audience and want to be sitting in the audience. So, which was a lot of fun. So then I just started growing up on the show with all these talented kids. Now, reaching back to that Oklahoma kids thing, um, having all those skills ready to go at that moment was such a huge benefit. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that I could do all of these things, which ended up being used on the show, whether I was juggling or acting or tap dancing or hip hop, whatever it was, I had done it. I was ready to go. So it went really well for me there. And then, of course, Hollywood Records got started. And I know you know about that because you were in the Party Patrol.
That's right.
So Hollywood Records got started, which was Disney owned, much like Touchstone was owned by Disney at that point. And yeah, we were their first. They wanted to have a pop-in, so they took 5 of the kids off the show. And I remember them telling us, "Look, we're going to take you off the show and be on, be a part of this group," which I thought was really exciting. But at the same time, we were also very sad that we were leaving the
Yeah,
show.
you're leaving
The
the
show
show.
is now really rolling, and we were like, "Man, we got this down now."
Yeah.
This is kind of forbidden territory. We didn't really know what was going to happen, but they told us and assured us this was a big deal. So we were the first act signed to Hollywood Records. They also had bought Queen, so they had Queen on their label because they bought the catalog. So it was kind of us and Queen. Yeah, man, they took us to California, and they started that process and set us up with writers. And I remember my first song was "I Want to Be Your Boyfriend" that I recorded.
That's so classic.
Yeah, they were like, we're gonna send you a car, and I ended up, winding through the Hollywood Hills and ended up at this house. And a house, okay, ding dong, and walk upstairs, and it's Steve Vai's house from Whitesnake, and it's his studio. So I'm like, this is nuts, right?
In his house?
Yeah, in his house. So that was my first kind of recording experience with the Party. And that's
Wow.
kind of how the Party was, man. They were throwing money at it because it was new and they wanted to succeed. They had the greatest writers, and they were setting us up with, I mean, you name it, from Dr. Dre to Andre Simone, which is Prince's partner, to having Pharrell do mixes for us back then before he was Pharrell, before he was on his solo stuff. And that was just such a crazy education to be able to sit there as a kid with those producers and Teddy Riley, sending us off to Teddy Riley at Virginia Beach, and just kind of soak all that in, and like, wow, this is what I want to do. This is cool. This is, now we're a musician. Now we're in this world, and it was a much bigger deal because it wasn't a subscription based thing. The Disney Channel, not everybody got the Disney Channel, which they do now. They didn't own ABC back then. Hollywood Records was on an international level. So we were sent all over, from Singapore to, Korea, and, we just having the time of our life with each other, and we were best friends, so even though it looks very contrived and funny when you see the Party kind of walking down the street, just the black guy, the white guy, the Asian, it just was like, what is happening? We had already been together for years, living and breathing, like-minded performing arts stuff. And we're all each other had, because we had all moved away from our friends and family. So when we got to Florida, we were kind of on this island together, and there was just nothing else. So we became best friends. So there was nothing like it, man. Touring the
Wow.
world with our best friends and playing. And then Vanilla Ice took Dum 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 Da Da Dum Dum, which Queen owned. So through a lawsuit, all of a sudden we're on tour with Vanilla Ice, playing in his heyday, and playing 10,000 seaters a night. It was crazy. It was a lot of fun.
Crazy time in your life. Going back to the MMC days,
I think the cool part is, yeah, I think that's what I loved about it was you guys you had to know how to sing, you had to know how to act, you had to know how to dance. You guys could do all of that. And then they put you five together to form the party. But how old were you when the party formed?
Ooh, probably 14.
Oh, okay. See, and you're a few years older than me. So I guess for me, it was always like, oh, they're like way older. I always felt like you guys were, you and Damon
No,
and Albert were
14,
like way
15,
older.
16 was pretty
Okay.
much the heyday of those. And I went back to the Mickey Mouse Club when I was just turning 18.
Oh,
So
wow.
what happened is the music world as we know it, because we were kids, we didn't realize everything recycles, and everything kind of goes in a circle. We didn't know. So all of a sudden we're listening to Pearl Jam and Lenny Kravitz, and the Seattle sound came through the music industry, like a storm, and nothing else was really happening. So it was all about that Nirvana, and we were listening to that. I was wearing my flannel shirts, and we're like, so what do we do now? And the president of the label was like, well, you keep going, and we're like, does it make sense? And so right before we turned 18, we just kind of said, let's take a break here. Let's see what we can get into elsewhere, which was super scary. So I went back to Mickey Mouse Club and became the co-host with Tiffany, which was awesome because now I'm with the young Ryan Gosling and Britney and Christina and Justin Timberlake and all these
Yeah.
guys, and
I
came
think
back as kind of the big brother, right?
yeah. And I think that's what people don't realize. Yeah. The Mickey Mouse Club, the all new MMC, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it attracted those type of talent. Timberlake and Britney and
And again,
Christina Aguilera.
like that Oklahoma kids thing for me, that phenomenon. Now it's the same thing in this place. We were in a very protected environment, and we were all learning from each other. So if we were dancing, on the side, you'd see Justin and Ryan and being like, okay, or Dale be like, oh, okay, I see you, Albert. All right.
Yeah.
And we were learning from each other, and there was never it was healthy competition, but we always rooted for each other. Like if someone had to do a dance number and they weren't really a dancer, we were over there rooting them on, and it's still like that to this day. If Tony Luca needs background vocals, I'm there. I'm the first one going, hey, bro, why aren't you calling?
Yeah.
So, and we still do that for each other, which is awesome.
That's cool. I like the fact. And I'm guessing kind of take me kind of like a day in the life of a MMC cast member. I mean,
God,
you're probably, I mean,
yeah.
that you're together a lot.
Yeah, and I don't even know how we did it at this point. Being an adult now, I couldn't do what we did then. I think because I didn't have, insurance and rent and taxes and things in my head that go through my head now. It was just like this clean slate. But our days were insane because in the beginning we filmed a show a day. So when you see a lot of those numbers and they're kind of loose or they're not perfect, it's because of that. It's like, so to try to take you through it, we had to at least do 3 hours legally of school a day. So we would be on set or at the studio, 7:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock, and starting school. And during school, people would be intermittently pulled out to do B-roll footage or a voiceover or something for tomorrow's show.
Oh, wow.
But all the stuff for today's show we did yesterday. So then we would rehearse during that day, during being pulled out and out of school. We'd do rehearsals for different things for tomorrow. But today we still have a show we got to do that we rehearsed yesterday, and some of those skits were 25 pages long. I don't even know how we did it.
That's,
And they would film it like a lot. They would film it. They didn't want to stop. It's like, go, 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 go.
keep going.
So there
Wow.
was a lot of that going on. And they would do pre-tapes on, a lot of the little transitional pieces you'd see in between skits and stuff. But a lot of those skits just ran as you saw them.
Wow.
So
And you guys
it
you
was
come from
wild.
all over the United States. I mean, you guys are from all over the place. Are you staying in dorms? Like, where do you stand? Like, how does this work?
It started where they had us at like an apartment complex.
Okay.
And so we were all kind of, and that's the thing, after work, if we were all kind of Hollywood, New York kids or whatever, and came from there, we all would have went home to our respective
Sure.
friends and with our families. But that just wasn't it. A lot of times, a lot of our families, one member of the family stayed in the hometown, take care, not knowing what was going to happen. And then maybe one family member came and stayed with them while we filmed the show. So even after work, it was still like, hey, bro, see you at the hot tub. Hey, we'll see you at the weight room. and so it never ended. And that was the same happened with the crew as well. So the crew would be having like these barbecues and volleyball parties and stuff, which we'd all go over and hang out with them. It's the same thing. They came from either New York or LA or Atlanta, and they were in this place where they had no other friends. So it was like, hey, what are you doing after work? So we really bonded unlike any experience, unlike any show I've ever been a part of. And all of them say that. And that's why, we're all so close, I think, still.
Yeah. It's amazing too, as a 13-year-old kid, you're saying, see you after work, as a 13-year-old.
Oh yeah, we're at the hot tub running lines and, screwing around and running around on the golf course.
Yeah, that's great.
We would do that at work too. We'd be like, hey, we're in school. And I'd look over and wink at Albert and Damon. I'd be like, I'd raise my hand and be like, what's going on, Chase? I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm going to go over to craft services real quick, go to the bathroom. I'm like, okay. So I'd walk across the bridge. And sure enough, the other guys would be like, yeah, I got to go. I got to go. And then all of a sudden we were running onto the great movie ride and then running back to school as quick as we could. So we would do like, little tomfoolery like that when we could.
To your boys still, your teenage boys at the time. Wow.
I might have gotten some phone numbers from some pretty girls, at some point.
Speaking of pretty girls, I mean, that was one reason I liked to watch the show. I had a huge crush on Alana Miller when I was growing up.
I believe it's her birthday today, actually. I know this is not going to air at the same time, but her birthday is today. Yeah.
That's funny. So yeah, I used to watch that show and be like, oh, and she was part of, I think it was it called Emerald Cove? There's like a little show that they tried, that they did.
Yep.
She was in that with Mark, and yeah, it just when you say these names, I'm just like, wow, this is just, I grew up watching this, as a teenager and stuff, and my kids are probably like, what the heck is he talking about when they hear this back? They'll be like, what?
She's not really in the industry anymore, but she's a big time lawyer, brother. She did all right.
Is she really?
Yeah.
She's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Good for her. That's awesome. She seemed like she had her wits about her. I figured she'd probably be successful. So that's awesome. So back to the party a little bit, and that group and that camaraderie. You said you were all best friends. Tell me a little bit about that, because I think you're all still friends today, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we were inseparable. I mean, it moved from one location to another. All of a sudden, now we're on the road on a tour bus, and we're all trying to write songs and figure out how to, do the next part of our career. But yeah, we stayed tight. We still stay tight. I talked to Damon today. They're still rooting me on from behind the scenes for what I'm doing now. So I think I'll see Albert when I get to Chicago, because we're getting ready to go on tour to Chicago. So yeah, it just hasn't changed. And that's that bond that happened, kind of no matter what happens in life, I think we'll always have that.
Yeah. Which is
really cool, man. Especially to tour the world like that. To, be with your best friends like that.
Yeah. And I think, something that's interesting too is life happens. And I know you lost one of your members of your team. Might have kind of tell us a little bit about that.
We did. It was very unfortunate and gone way too soon. But yeah, we lost Tiffany on Christmas Day. She had a heart attack and fell into a coma, and then yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, so we're still extremely close with her mom, and we try to honor her whenever we can. We recently did a party reunion at the House of Blues a couple years ago, and we did a whole thing on her. We still try to, we never say she wasn't a part of the party. If we do the party, she's still with us at all times. She's will and forever be a part of the party.
Lily, thank you for sharing that.
Tiffany was, and now as an adult, seeing what we mean to people now, because we didn't have social media, we didn't get the feedback that we get now. And now we get a lot of like, I grew up with you, and how we realized the importance of Disney. Disney was on top of it, with having African American and Asian and all that, that inclusivity was very important, and people really related to that. There was people that specifically sat down because they felt welcomed by. There's a story where I went to an Outback not long ago, a couple years ago, here in Saugus, Massachusetts, of all places. And I had a beanie cap on, and I was with my baby, and I still had the car seat. And this couple got up and moved out of the way for me. And the lady was just looking at me crazy, and she did the same thing, but the husband was being very friendly. And as soon as I got to my booth, I got a little ding on my phone, and it was that couple that we had just. I'm like, oh my God, honey, this is the couple that we just saw right there in the. And she went on to kind of what we're talking about here is that, you have no idea what you meant to me, God. I was an only child. I was a mixed race. I was adopted, and I had no friends. I got bullied, but every day at 5:30, I could sit down and count on the fact that Albert was going to be there and make me feel, welcomed and normal. So I went over
Wow.
there and she's crying and, it's a whole thing, but we get that a lot now. And I realize how important that really is. I mean, it's kind of a gift that we get to kind of feel now. We didn't get to feel it then because we didn't get that feedback. Like I said, we were literally just having the time of our lives. We were just normal kids in kind of a candy store and on that
Oh,
set.
yeah.
But, seeing the importance of that, I think that's why the Mickey Mouse Club was so important to the people who watched it.
But yeah, that was me. I mean, I was watching it every day. We had a subscription to the Disney Channel. My wife did not, so this doesn't make any sense to her because she didn't follow it like I did. But yeah, that was exactly how it was for me. I mean, I watched it all the time. I remember thinking to myself, oh, I want to be on the Mickey Mouse Club, but I can't sing, dance, or act. So let's, and
And it
never.
inspired a lot of people. It inspired a
For
lot of
sure.
people who wanted to be in the performing arts, who didn't have anything else to
Absolutely.
watch. Like I went to see Tony Luca, it must have been 10, 15 years now ago. And he was performing with Sarah Bareilles. And I was like, oh, and I was teaching kids then. So I was like, hey, Sarah, hey, buddy, can I get you to sign, one of your, posters? And she's like, yeah, I'll do that for you. And she turned around and wrote, from your biggest, to Chase, I watched you every day. I'm your biggest fan, Sarah Bareilles. And I looked at her and I was just like, really? And she's like, oh yeah. She's like, I watched it all the time. I'm a huge fan of you guys. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea you even knew who I was. And she's like, of course I know you were.
Yeah.
And we've gotten that from a lot of industry people as well, just like that we inspired them to be playwrights or directors. This guy's done Broadway shows that say the same thing to us. I'm like, man, that's so cool that it made such an impact, So Disney really was ahead of their time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and then look, here you are talking to me, which is just a dream come true for me. So this is fantastic. Because you kind of talked a little bit about teaching kids, I want to talk about kind of where life has taken you since then. But before we do that, one of the biggest trademarks for you, at least, was your red hair on the Mickey Mouse Club. And you had crazy hair. Like even with the party, your hair was crazy. What was this all? Was this just kind of who you were, just with the hair?
So, I mean, to be honest, that first day when we all met each other, when we all got cast on this show, imagine being super talented, maybe being, one of the most talented kids in your neighborhood or in your community. All of these kids were that. They were the most talented kids in their neighborhoods. So we all got in the same room together and we're all scoping each other out, sizing each other up. We're like, how do I fit in here? How do I, how am I going to fit into this thing? Now, and I think all of us kind of leaned in on all those things that make us us. Whether, I was wearing ripped jeans. I was kind of into rock and roll a little bit back then. And I knew that I was the redhead, and so I was doing my hair crazy. The crazier I had it, the more fan mail I was getting. But I think a lot of that kind of falls in line with that, where we were just leaning in on who we were. Because, again, there was one of every thing on the Mickey Mouse Club, whether we were tall, fat, skinny, no teeth, buck teeth, and we were going through puberty on that show, for God's sake, voices changing. I think when I first got there, my voice started changing, and I'm like, oh no, not now, this is horrible. But, again, you kind of find how to get in where you fit in kind of thing. And that was one of those things that I leaned in on was my hair. I wish I had as much as I had then.
Times change, right?
But yeah. But yeah, man. Yeah. I look at those pictures and laugh. Of course, that was what was going on then, the
100%.
haters and the
the
flat ironing the hair and
yeah,
Guns N' Roses and all that craziness.
I mean, I think at one point I think this might have been when you were at the party and on tour or something. You had like a flower like in the side of your
Oh yeah. Shaving all the designs in there and coloring them.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Yep. I love it. That's awesome. Thanks for taking me back down memory lane. This has been a lot of fun. After the Mickey Mouse Club, you said you and Tiffany co-hosted there for a little while. Where did you kind of go from there? Because you talk about teaching kids, and so what did you end up doing?
I was hoping the show would continue on, but they had Eisner and Katzenberg, had a thing, and they split up, and then everything kind of changed over. And that's famous with Disney, is when they kind of have a takeover and new people come in, they kind of clean the slate and they want to kind of reinvent the wheel. And so that's kind of later on when you got the High School Musicals and all the other things that kind of came out of that. And maybe we even helped inspire a lot of that, because I think they looked back at the way Hollywood Records worked and they started doing Disney records started doing the Miley Cyruses and the Demi Lovato's. And so a lot of these things kind of came out of that situation. Yeah, I went back to LA, and a lot of us went to LA just to kind of see what would happen. And now we're, in the big pond. And, again, you just try to figure out how to make a living out of the whole thing. And I started doing a lot of commercials, of course, because the red hair. And I probably did every 90s show that was out there from, Buffy, Sabrina, and Seventh Heaven. My favorite was X-Files. But yeah, everything that you could do. I started teaching because everybody in California has to have a side job at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I started teaching at the School of Rock, and then very quickly our bosses bought out School of Rock, and we changed it into our own school called Rock Nation. And I grew up with like Kiss and Guns N' Roses on the back of my door, and I had all these big plans of when I came to California, what I was going to do. Now that I had all this experience, I'm going to go knock on these doors, and I'm going to try to get involved in this, or I'm going to try to meet this person. And it just never happens. Like, you never know what door or where even to find those doors. And so I was just kind of spinning my wheels out there, trying to figure out how to make it. And as soon as I started teaching, as soon as it became not about me and me kind of giving those experiences back to kids, all those doors opened up. It was the wildest thing. And you hear that from, your elders, and it's just, yeah. And sure enough, I started teaching, and I started teaching Nikki Sixx's kids, and I had Nikki Sixx sitting next to me while I'm teaching his daughter. Flash came in, we started teaching his son. We taught most of the kids from the Elton John band. And the cool part about that is I became the music director of that school. And these people would come in and play with us. Like Slash would come in and play with the kids. We'd play with the Elton John band. And Tom Morello would come in and judge the kids from Rage Against the Machine. He'd come in and judge the kids in Battle of the Bands. I had the time of my life doing that. I've had well over 1,500 students. I've been teaching for 17 years. I still love it, mentoring kids. And the coolest part of that is a lot of these kids now, not everybody gets to be Justin Timberlake, but at the end of the day, a lot of these kids, I don't know if it was the area they were from. We was in Agora Hills, kind of the backside of Malibu where I was teaching. But a lot of these kids have surpassed my career tenfold. Like, they are out winning Billboard Music Awards. They're playing Coachella. One guy sends me a video from him playing Lollapalooza last year in Brazil. And I swear it's like 100-something thousand people all jumping up and down at the same time. I'm just like, this looks fake. This is crazy. He was playing with the Wallows. Young kids are going to know that. But yeah, like one drummer is playing with Ali and AJ. One band is called Lovely the Band, which is a huge band. I can go on and on and on. Some of these kids are in huge bands, and we still communicate, and they still give me all the love and say, "Oh, dude, you got me into this." I'm like, "Oh, no, you were talented. Thanks for letting me be a small part of it." Because if you've ever taught, if you teach, as you're teaching, you kind of reaffirm your own beliefs. And it kind of makes yourself stronger by having to explain things, and it just kept my chops going. It kept me going, and 17 years later, now I'm here, and now doing the same thing. Actually, I was asked to do I married my high school sweetheart, a girl that I had met, in probably the first season of Mickey Mouse Club. We kept in touch.
What?
And I finally just left LA. I was ready to leave LA, and I moved to Massachusetts. And now I'm like, oh my God, what do I do here? We have two beautiful children, so I've been a dad for the most part. But I do teach out here. I teach online. And my agent said, can you go work with this girl? She wants to do a Christmas song. And she was currently in Les Mis on Broadway. So she flew in, 9 years old. And they're like, can you do a Christmas song with her? I'm like, sure, of course. So I came in, I went to this local studio here in Reading, and I went in and started working on this song with her. And I'd already broken it all down and gotten all the harmonies done. So I kind of just told her what to do. Got it done in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And the studio owner was like, man, thank you for helping me get through that section. That was awesome. And okay, no problem. And I came home, and my wife's like, hey, how much money did you make? And I was like, oh, honey, I didn't talk to her about it before. I just, I just did it for, maybe something will come around from it, She's like, oh, okay. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I should have talked to him. I should have, said something, but I didn't. And sure enough, a couple months go by, and the studio owner called me and said, would you mind if I give your number out to some guys if they're looking for background vocals or, demos? I'm like, please, that would be amazing. I would love that. Anytime type of thing you have for me like that, I would love to do it. And all of a sudden I got a random phone call from the situation I'm in now. And they had heard from this guy that I was a friendly guy and easy to work with. And I said, hey, easy to work with.
There it is. Comes back around.
And dude, yeah, I can't even tell you. And they asked me if they heard some songs of mine. They were like, "Is that you singing?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's me." And they're like, "Man, we're looking for a lead singer of our new band, and Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith is the bass player." And I was just like, "What is happening? I'm in Massachusetts. What is happening?" And of course, Aerosmith is from Massachusetts, so now it all makes sense. And sure enough, you just never know. You can't quit. You got to keep believing in yourself and keep pounding the pavement. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I continued to teach that, even though it wasn't happening for me all in a lot of those years. I was teaching that, and sometimes you feel like a hypocrite saying it because it's like you become the teacher and not the person doing it. And like, oh yeah, we see why you teach, but in this instance, it kept me going and it kept me getting out there. It kept me believing, and yeah, man, it came around, and now here I am.
Well, and I love it because you said, the moment you kind of started just like forgetting about yourself, so to speak, and kind of giving back, that's when the doors started opening. And then you went and just helped out, the 9-year-old and, I'm just being Chase, just being who you
And
are.
I truly love it. I truly love it because of that parent situation. A lot of times the parents of kids are very protective. And they're like, I don't want my kid doing this. There's no future in this. But if I really saw a kid that like blew me away, I'm going to grab that parent and pull them aside and go, okay, here's the deal. You don't have to do this. And I understand your fear, but like, because I was signed at that young age, I know what was expected of me and I know what I'm capable of at that young age. So some parents might say like, you're being too hard on them or you're asking too much. I'm like, man, no, like there's so much more that can come out of this. Like you have no idea. And being able to speak on that experience, the fact that it happened to me gives me an advantage in that situation with kids. So, and their parents, because I was signed at 11 and then signed again to Hollywood Records at 14. And I turned out okay. I'm not a crazy person.
Doing all right. Yeah. Tell me about the situation you're in now. So what's the name of the band? What's going on with it?
The name of the band is Close Enemies, which we are not enemies at all. It's just kind of a fun name because at this point, with the internet, it's impossible to find a name that hasn't been used. Like literally impossible. You can come up with the funniest, most stupid name, and then look it up, and sure enough, there's going to be a page or a Spotify or something. So it's literally impossible. But we thought it was funny from kind of The Godfather, and kind of use the play on words there, and the fact that we're all best friends at this point, is fun. But we're kind of an enemy to current rock and roll. We want to try to save rock and roll and make sure that we can kind of bring back the good stuff. No tracks, no harmonizers or Melodyne, or there's no click tracks in our ears. This is just straight classic rock. And these guys, being able to stand in the middle of these guys is just incredible. Peter Stroud, who's one of the guitar players, he's played for 25 years as the music director for Sheryl Crow, played for Don Henley and a number of others. Trace Foster, the other guitar player, has been a tech to the stars. He's been a guitar tech and a bass tech for just about anybody you can imagine. And I'm not saying like think big, like so from AC/DC to Ron Wood from the Stones to Mick Jagger, and he was actually Tom Hamilton's bass tech. So, and Tom Hamilton's obviously from Aerosmith, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And then Tony Brock is one of the original members of the Babies and played for a good 12 years with Rod Stewart. He's played with Tina Turner, and these guys they've been through it, done it. No ego, just it's all about just fun, and it's incredible. And at one point Trace was like trying to put together a band, and he's like, as he was teching for Tom, he's looking at him going, that's my bass player right there. Why don't I just ask him? Even though he was in Aerosmith, he's like, hey man, would you be interested? And Tom's like, yeah, well, yeah, send me some tracks. Let's see what happens. And then while they were going through that, Aerosmith, retired, they, too soon. They wanted to keep going, obviously, and you never know. I hope to God that something miraculous happens with Steven and they can get out there and do some more stuff, because everybody's still in their own situations.
Yeah.
Tony still plays with the Babies. Peter still plays with Cheryl. So they all still do their thing, but we've been having fun doing this project together. And now it's just really taken off. You know, we've got a good 12 songs done and another 10 sitting there in pieces ready to go. It's, we can get together and we just spit them out. It's incredible.
And the most recent single, what's the name of it?
Most recent, we just signed with TLG Rock and we're distributed by Virgin. And the first single is called Sound of a Train. And if I can give you a quick story on this, the coolest
absolutely.
part is they were auditioning me for the band. I was the last person to enter the band. They went through a ton of singers. And you know, they had given me that call and said, you know, we're looking for a singer, but they didn't give me the job just yet. It was kind of like The Voice. They sent me Sound of a Train actually and said, can you record this? And so I did. And the version that you hear is what I sent them. It was my demo. And because it was like I never redid it. So they were like, you know, why try to redo it? Because there was magic happen. And a lot of that magic was because at that very same time, out of nowhere, I got a call to go be by my dad's side because he was all of a sudden got sick. And I'm like, oh no. Out of nowhere, he was playing tennis a month before, and then all of a sudden he got pneumonia, got sick, and is in the hospital. He got to go home. So I went home. I told these guys, hey guys, I know we're in the middle of trying to do all this stuff, but I gotta go. Like, oh, okay, you know. And I'm thinking probably just gonna move on to the next singer at this point. And I'm sitting in the hospital with my dad, and I'm thinking like, I might as well play him the song, you know. And so I played him "Sound of the Train," and he's more of a John Denver kind of guy. He's not really, you know, into the screaming and the loud music, but sure enough, he loved it, you know. And he threw his arms up and was howling, called the nurses in. I was like, "This is my son." I'm like, "Well, let's not get too excited, you know. I don't have the job yet." But you know, I wanted him to hear something and just, you know, because he was always my biggest supporter, my biggest fan. And literally 2 hours before he passed, these guys text me. This kind of shows you what kind of guys these are. They text me and said, "Hey, pal, we're just checking on you." And then the next part was in all caps. "We just want you to know that your new band is here for you. And you know, we're here for whatever you need." And so I looked, you know, yeah, I'm in the band, you know, I'm in the band. And he went crazy. And I just so happy they gave me that moment with him, you know, before he passed, because he felt relieved, and he literally said, "I can go now. I will have the best seats in the room." So every night we do that song. It's deep. So that song to me is deep. You can put whatever situation you want into that song, whether you're coming out of a bad relationship or an addiction or something. But I always just think of that train calling my dad home, you know, and so it's deep, man. So, and it's doing very well. It's on the radio now, and it's taken off. So fingers crossed.
That's fantastic. I'm so happy for you on what's happened and kind of where your life's been. And man, it's amazing to see. I do want to ask a little bit about, so you said your wife, you knew her from your time, what'd you say, when you were in the Mickey Mouse Club, you met her, did you meet her in Florida? Is she from Oklahoma, or where's she from?
No, back then, actually, she was there before the show even aired. So they were bringing people from the park to be part of the studio audience. And so, you know, I'm a teenager. I'm 13 at this point, and I look out and my hair is all spiky, you know, and I see this girl with bigger bangs than me, and I'm like your hair, you know, that ungodly hair that we all had back then with the hairspray.
Of course.
And we just locked eyes, man. And after the show back then, because we weren't on the air yet, so after the show we would do little autograph signings. We had to cancel that at some point because it got too crazy. So I met her after the show with a bunch of people, you know, signing autographs and stuff. And being the introverted person that I am, I didn't say anything other than, "Hi, nice to meet you." And her being from Boston and no nonsense, after she went home, she figured out how to call the bungalow and said, "I need to talk to Chase." And this would never happen, you know, and I don't know how she pulls it off, but the secretary said, "Well, you know, he's at work, but Chase's mom's walking by right now. Hold on, I'll give you his phone." So she hands the phone to my mom in the office. And of course, my wife, you know, Lisa, was saying like, "You know, I met Chase. I just wanted him to know that, I just wanted to meet him. Is there any way?" And my mom goes, "You know what? He was talking about you, and he was upset that he didn't get your phone number." Because I was like, "Why didn't I get her phone number? I'm an idiot. You know, God, what an idiot. Like, I'm really playing this right, you know?" Blown. And sure enough, she calls and gives her my number. And my mom comes home. I saw my mom after work, and she's like, "I got that girl's phone number." And I'm like, "No, it's talking about the same girl." He's like, "Yeah, yeah." And I'm like, are you sure? So I called her, heard the Boston accent. I'm like, okay, that's her. And her parents dropped her off at Pleasure Island. My mom dropped me off at Pleasure Island in our little
So great.
caravan. And we walked over to Videopolis and hung out in Videopolis on an off night. There was nobody in there, but I just, wanted to see her and wanted to be with her, walk around with her and hold hands. And her brother even came along. And as soon as her brother went to, go to the restroom, somehow I snuck a kiss and I went for it and got a kiss out of her. So that was like our first kiss. And man, we stayed in touch forever. Even when I was going through hard times in California, I would reach out to her, and she might have been going out with somebody else or me going out with somebody else, but we always kind of communicated. And she was a special girl. And finally, I just got tired of LA, and I was like, you know what? Are you dating anybody? She's like, no, I'm not dating. I'm like, now it's time.
Let's go.
So long time too late, but I guess you're never too late. But I should have done it a long time ago. Smartest thing I ever did was leave California to be with her, and we have 2 beautiful children now. And yeah, it's awesome.
Very cool. How long have you been married now?
Oh God, 12 years.
Wow, good for you. That's awesome. Wow, that's a good story too. Just in and of itself. Kids, it's boy and a girl, right? You have a boy and a girl?
Yep.
How old are they now?
6 and 8-year-old.
6 and 8.
6 and 8.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. That's cool. And those are the things, the things of, you look back now and you say, wow, this career you've had, the career you're still having with Close Enemies, which is awesome. You got me listening to it now.
Awesome.
Yeah, very, very good. Before we wrap up, so it's an adventure podcast. I like to ask people like what adventure means to you, but for you then, when you look back at your life, like what's this adventure in Chase Hampton's life? What's it meant to you, and what do you think about it?
I really don't know anything different, man. Yeah, there's things that I missed out on in life, whether it was a prom or graduation from a normal school, but all the things that I've been blessed to do, I just take it. It's all built upon me. Even doing this new thing, I get, because Tom's in Aerosmith, and all that, I get a lot of comparison with Steven Tyler. Like, well, he's not Steven Tyler. But I'm not trying to be Steven Tyler. We're not a tribute band. I'm literally Chase, and I've had all these crazy experiences, and everything that you see is built upon all of those experiences, all the way back to Oklahoma Kids, even the giving, the charity part of me now. I'm now the CEO of Always in the Club with Dale Godbaldo. And it's kind of morphed into that, because now I'm not in California anymore. I'm here. So we do a lot of events with the Mickey Mouse Club guys. We get together and do events and raise money for charity and Music Cares for the Grammy organization. And it's just being able to continue to do that and be around my buds. And now we got all sorts of them teaching. A lot of them are teaching now and mentoring. We have a mentoring program within Always in the Club. Man, I can't even tell you, this journey, I hope, is not even close to being over. I just turned 50, and I'm, if I would have thought, man, when I'm 50, I'm going to be an old man, that's going to be crazy. And then here I am now with these guys that are in their 60s and 70s, and they got more energy than I do, man. And it's so cool to see them want to do this. Like, I look at Tom and I'm like, man, you could just hang it up, go live in Bermuda or something.
Right.
And I even thanked his wife at one point. I'm like, hey, thank you for letting us borrow his time. She's like, this is what makes him happy. He's been doing this for 50 years. It's just so cool to be around, again, like-minded people. So I couldn't be in a better place. I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Whether it was the Mickey Mouse Club or the party, having that camaraderie with people is very important. To be able to go on those adventures with people that you love is important. And, and even if it's just me and my wife, it's the same situation.
That's awesome. Chasen, thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
Bless you, brother. Thank you for having me, man.
Wow. What an incredible conversation with Chase Hampton. Chase, thank you so much for sharing your story with all of us and for making a dream come true for me. I'm still shaking my head that this actually happened. I feel so blessed. If you enjoyed this conversation, I highly recommend checking out Close Enemies, the band Chase is part of. You can follow them on Instagram at Close Enemies Official. And if you want to keep up with Chase himself, follow him at Chasen_Hampton. For those of you who, like me, were big fans of the Mickey Mouse Club, another great Instagram account to follow is at Always in the Club, dedicated to keeping the spirit of the show alive. To each and every one of you who tunes into Journey with Jake every week, thank you. Your support means the world to me. We're now over 3 years into this incredible journey, and I couldn't do it without you. Speaking of keeping the journey going, we've got an amazing adventure lined up for next week. I'll be talking with Jacob Lemansky, a world traveler who has biked around the world not once, but twice. He's going to share some unbelievable stories from his journey, so you won't want to miss it. Until then, just remember, it's not always about the destination, as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.